Welcome to Learn with Dylan. Today we're here with Brooke. Thank you so much, Brooke, for taking the time out of your day to come on board, and we're going to learn from you about the power of sales and how it has transformed your life, and you're transforming lives on a daily basis. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'd love to to get you to explain a little bit about yourself, your journey, and the power of sales.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you, first of all, for having me. I always get such a nice little surprise when someone asks me to appear on their podcast. I'm like, okay, sure. But a little about me. So for the last 10 years, I've been a primary school teacher. And I think it hit me one day when I was sitting on the floor with the kids around me and I was reading them a book. And I literally was like, is this my life for the next forever? Am I going to be doing this consistently every year for the rest of my life? And that scared the shit out of me because I just didn't feel like, I felt like I was born for more. So I decided to start exploring some online opportunities. And I think like everyone, I think everyone can, put their hand up and say that they've done this as well. But just got caught down the rabbit hole of multi-level marketing, affiliate marketing, digital marketing, e-commerce, drop shipping, everything. I just was trying to make a quick buck and prove to myself that I could succeed in the online space. And I was very quickly humbled. I didn't make a cent. I had like Shopify stores and I had like drop shipping things going on and none of it worked. So while I was teaching, I actually started to explore a multi-level marketing. Or some people like to say pyramid schemes, but it's very easy to get caught and I guess swept up in the idea of being able to become a millionaire and, you're surrounded by all these like-minded people and it very quickly became something that I was quite good at. And I was sent to America to accept an award for how quickly I got to this crystal executive thing. Can't really remember about, what it was, but it first opened my eyes to the world of sales. And I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But for some reason, somehow, some miracle, I was making sales and I was actually making quite a lot of money. So happy days back then. Well, I thought it was, but things weren't resonating with me. I was changing who I was. I was doing really icky things. I was lying about, transformations and how fast you could lose weight. And I guess it's because I had no idea how to sell. And to me, that's what I needed to do. I needed to, show the glitter and show how shiny and amazing it was to get people to want to do it. So it was my sister who said to me, Brooke, like, you've changed. And that's when I was like, right, I just threw in the towel. I let go of an opportunity to be trained by the company's millionaire. I'd won a competition and she was flying me over to Dallas, I think it was. And she'd bought me tickets and everything, and I turned it down. And she said to me, like, you'll never come back from this. And so I thought my days in sales were done. But here we are.
Wow. Yeah. That's a good story. I think I've heard from Jamie or someone. Someone did mention to you. Sorry about my dog.
They liked my story. What can I say?
Yeah, that's it. So I think Jamie's actually explained that story to me before about you selling like in like a pyramid scheme and everything, and you were sort of unaware of how good you were doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it was either Jamie or someone told me that, or I've heard it. So and people can get stuck stuck deeply in those as well.
Oh my goodness. It's honestly like a cult. And I was just so brainwashed into believing in their product. And this is what I'm going to talk about a bit more, is I had such a belief in the product. Yep. And I guess it was that was rubbing off on people. Like they saw my passion and they saw my belief, and that was contagious, and it made them feel, like this was going to be the solution for them. And this is before I even knew anything about sales. but I'm just a super passionate person in general if I believe in something. And that was definitely rubbing off on, people that were purchasing the products through me.
Yeah, and then that conviction, it comes through on those phone calls. Like I've
Absolutely.
heard some of your phone calls, and you really do sell with conviction. And one other thing that I've noticed about you is you're you're genuine, and people can
Oh,
tell. People can
yeah.
tell if you're genuine. So
Yeah.
genuine
Yeah.
if you're genuinely trying to help someone, and you're also like you have that belief in your voice and you have that conviction, like that is a game changer right there.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. I think people forget how powerful a belief is. But when you truly, whether you're the business owner or whether you're somebody who's done the product or service yourself, that belief can definitely be felt by your prospects through your
Yeah,
energy transference, through the way that you speak about it. Like you said, through being just a genuine person
yeah.
trying to help the other person. Like that belief system is so
Mm.
important.
And there is I do understand why a lot of people find sales sleazy and deceptive and manipulative, but that like you do really notice the difference, like especially when I hear you or hear someone else when they are being genuine, like it just comes
Mm,
through in their tone, which is obviously really important in sales. And yeah,
mm.
it makes a big difference. So I'd love to talk a little bit about, I guess, you know people thinking that sales is sleazy. Like I feel like you've got a lot of passion behind this too, and you
Mm,
obviously help inspire a lot of people, especially women, to take change and to start to believe in themselves. Because
mm,
if they're if they're not going through that emotional pain on a phone call, like they're not going to take the next step. Yeah.
mm,
But
mhm.
people always think, oh, salespeople, we're just getting sold. People don't like to get sold, but really, we're getting sold to every single day. Like every single day, you're getting sold. So you've got to learn
Absolutely.
the sales skills. So yeah, tell us a little bit about what you think about sleazy salesman and your experience with that.
Yeah, so it's so funny that you mentioned this because with all my girls, I always ask them when you think of sales, like honestly, what's the first word that comes to your mind? And it's always sleazy, manipulative, grimy, car salesman. It's so funny that our generation still thinks that sales is that.
Mm.
And I mean, when you actually stop and break it down, can you blame them? We've
Yeah.
got multi-level marketing. We've got, people in shopping centers asking, can I ask you a question? Like the way that sales is, and it's always been
Mm.
taught is to, I guess, instills that idea that it's high pressure, it's
Yeah.
manipulative, you
Yeah.
know? And I guess selling to a generation or to a society
Mm.
that perceives sales in that way can almost be impossible. Well, you would think it would be anyway.
Mm.
So this is why a lot of prospects rock up to sales conversations with resistance already built
Mm.
because they're like, all right, I'm about to enter into a sales process. Here we go. I'm going to put on my big girl knickers and I'm going to say no. And I'm going to, so
Yeah.
we're battling with that. That's what we're
Yeah.
trying to. So my biggest bit of advice to anybody is to always focus on disarming your prospect, making them
Mm.
feel like they're not in a sales process because the moment that they do, you've broken that
Yeah.
connection and it's super hard for you to rebuild it once it's been lost.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like selling to an unsellable society, essentially.
It's funny whenever I'm on a sales call and they're like, oh, I've done sales for 20 years or something like that. I'm just like, I just cut the shit. I just get straight to the point. Just like getting very logical because like they're very like I find it hard to sell to another salesperson. Well, it depends
Mm.
on the situation. But it's usually the guys that are hard to crack.
It's so disappointing that you say that because, I mean, if you're both in the same industry, they should understand that you follow a process just like
Mm.
they follow a process and respect that. You
Yeah.
know, that actually is so disappointing to hear because it's no different from, you know, a hairdresser going to get their hair cut from another hairdresser. They're not going to tell them how to do their job. They're just going to sit there and let them do it.
Yeah.
So for someone to come in and make you feel like you can't take them through your process is ridiculous.
It does happen from time to time, and then you know, sometimes you know, someone will say, like, at the end of the call, oh, look, I just made you a sale. That sort of lingo. But you know, at the end of the day, like, something that I've said to you before, I do try and come back to, you know, I'm actually helping people. Yeah. And it is obviously, like, it's obvious, like, there's a, you know, commission there and everything, but like, that's not what drives me. What drives me is I'm actually impacting people, and I'm making a difference, and I'm helping this person take the next step. And something that I know you're very passionate about is building that belief. Yeah. And you do that through that sales call, like that one that I listened to yesterday, when that woman was getting really emotional, and you were saying, like, what was her name?
It was Lynn, her name.
Lynn. Yeah, you're like, Lynn, imagine if you did drop, you know, X amount of kilos, and you were like, you were really spot on. Imagine if you did wear that, you know, you pointed out the exact clothing. Yeah. And imagine if you did, you know, walk into lounge room, and then your husband Frank turned around and said, how would that make you feel? And then you could just hear her just like crumble and like break down. And that, I feel like that's one thing that, like, you see all the time, and you obviously experience it, is that you could be having a call, and it's just going to plan, and then you just say something, and then unexpectedly they'll just like break down. They're just like, it's just like they're releasing all that pain that they've been going through. And they've got to go through that. They've got to, and that's one of the things that they teach you, like in an EPQ and everything like that. Like, you've got to get them to relive that pain, otherwise they're not going to change. They're going to see the price, instead of seeing, like, holy shit, like, if I don't do anything about this, like, I could end up with more weight, I could end up with a bad hip, I could end up depressed, I could end up, you know, so it just goes down a massive
you know, when I am in a sales call, I think of like my flow, which is you know, meet your client, you're building that rapport, that connection. It's a peak of the call. Now, then you start talking about their pain, you're getting them to relive pain, their brain releases cortisol. That's where, you know, you've got them talking and reliving, you know, about what their problem, what kind of pain is coming from the problem that they're experiencing. And then you ask them to visualize their life, you know, what it looks like having fixed this problem, which is releasing serotonin, oxytocin. It's in a beautiful place of the call. And then it's like, hey, I'm going to bring you gently back down to reality because you're not there yet. What happens if you don't, you know, achieve XYZ? Getting them to, again, release cortisol because they're thinking of the consequence of not taking action. And then you're into presenting your solution, which is just such another beautiful rise, because they're starting to connect the dots and go, oh, right. So if I just do X, Y, and Z, my problem is going to be solved.
Yeah. I love that. That's actually probably the best breakdown, and like, you're, you know, using cortisol and everything that I've heard. That was awesome.
Yeah. Well,
I never really thought of it like that.
Yeah.
Like, in a way, you know, like, you are, like, you're, you know, releasing that cortisol, you're getting in like in that state, and then you're getting them on a bit of a high, but then you're also bringing them, so it's a bit of an emotional roller coaster.
That's exactly what it is. It's an emotional roller coaster that you want them to feel every little thing, because it all has a big part in the larger picture, right?
Yeah.
This is why when you said to me earlier, sometimes you people get on your call and you just like quickly get to the logical and talk about there is no way a sale will be ever made because there's no gap that's been built, right? It's literally like, and it's so hard. I get it with A-type personalities who kind of come in and they big dick you and they're like, right, I'm not here for, you know, chit chat, just cut to the chase. It's really hard not to let that trigger you and throw out your sales process. But the moment that you give in and let it trigger you, there's not going to be a sale that's made. So you're literally just throwing out your opportunity to serve this person out the window.
I love that too. You said serve this person. So I heard this from someone else before, and they said selling is serving.
Yeah.
And you've probably heard of that.
Yeah,
And it
for
is,
sure.
selling is serving. Like, because
Absolutely.
you're literally getting them to, you're inspiring them, and you're building that belief in them to take that next step.
Exactly. And you got to think, right? Your brain wants you to stay the same. It literally wants you to be a fat slob and sit on the couch and do what you do every day. It doesn't like change. So you're competing with that. And then you've got, the salesperson or the change facilitator, I like to say, who's challenging some of those beliefs. And it feels uncomfortable. It does, because change is essentially you stepping out of your comfort zone. So that's always going to feel uncomfortable. And I like to point that out in a sales call. I'm like, what you're feeling right now, that tension, that's normal. Okay. I need you to lean into that, because that's what's going to get you to change. Create the space for it to happen. Otherwise, you're going to stay the same, because that's what your brain wants. And that's the story that you keep feeding into.
Yeah, I love that. I love, like, when you say lean into it too. That's good.
Lean into the discomfort. That's one of my lines.
Sit in that pain. Yeah, it's like and when they are sort of like opening up, and like it really does hit you, and then you just like to create that space where they can open up, and then hopefully they do take that next step.
Absolutely. If you don't create the space, and this is, I guess, showing the importance of silence and pauses and tonality and cadence and emphasizing certain words. If you're not giving your prospect the space to actually speak and think and visualize, they're not going to come to the realizations that you need them to in order to understand the importance of taking change with you on the call.
Yeah, exactly right. And I heard another great thing. You can think of sales, like when you're doing a sales calls, is you're literally just coaching someone through that process. Like you're coaching them to take that next step. So instead of thinking about like you're trying to sell this person, you're trying to coach them. You're trying to give them that power to empower themselves to take that next step.
Yeah, you're facilitating change. That's what you're doing. And I love that, because that's coming from a place of service, right?
Yeah.
You're not attached to the outcome. You're literally just there to help this person. And you've got to think, it's such a beautiful thing when you break it down. A lot of these people, and particularly in my industry, a lot of these women have let this fester for so many years. Some taking a change as big as they do on the call is such a momentous occasion for them, because it's just so out of the ordinary.
And it's just so built up. Like as you said, like it's just years and years and years. And like that lady that you talked to, it's probably been like 20 years or something since she's felt good. And like we all tend to bottle things up, or we can, and we are basically cracking that egg open, and like
getting her to speak into it. Absolutely. I think one thing that's really important as well is acknowledging that speaking about pain is uncomfortable and it's hard. So what you'll find your prospect try and do to protect themselves is they'll mention it, but then they'll sidetrack themselves and start talking about an injury or excuses. But a really good communicator will be able to say, hey, hang on a sec, like let's explore this for a minute, because that's obviously causing you some discomfort. And once you crack that and you actually get to the bottom of where their pain is really coming from and what is it, that's when you can start to build the gap, because you know how to fill in the missing pieces. It's like, well, let's visualize the opposite of that. Let's visualize your husband looking at you again and, complimenting you, and let's visualize you wearing that black dress that you've got hanging up that's collecting dust. That is just such powerful. Creating that vision is just such a powerful tool.
Yeah. Like, and we need to, as you said, like we need to create that gap. Yeah. Otherwise, and this is one thing you learn off Jeremy Meyer and stuff, he talks heavily about creating that gap. Otherwise, why would someone buy? Like, why would someone buy now?
No, if there's no consequence for them saying to you, Dylan, I'm going to go away and actually think on this, why would they purchase with you, or why would they choose to say yes if there is no gap, or if
Yeah.
there's no consequence of them hanging up the phone and not moving forward?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Love that. Well, next I'd like to talk a little bit more about how like sales skills and just getting better at communication, like how it has like transformed your life. Like, can you give us any scenarios where like sales has helped you?
Absolutely. So prior to learning how to sell, I would avoid any type of confrontation, conflict like the plague. Like, I'm not joking. My mum had to ring up Telstra if I was arguing a bill, or, I couldn't say, I couldn't have uncomfortable conversations at all. Like, if I was to break up with a boyfriend, I would have to write them a letter or a text message. Like, I couldn't do it.
Mm.
So I think where people don't understand is that sales is communicating, right?
Mm.
So when I learned how to communicate, I was able to have uncomfortable confrontations, and not just have them, but be very good at having them. So
Mm.
listening, understanding how to get my own way. That's something that we can talk into as well.
Yeah, yeah. Like get what you
Because
want.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like getting them to think of the idea, even though you planted the seeds along the
that's
way,
it.
which is
I love
a
planting
form of.
seeds.
So if you want your husband to say yes to you, a holiday or a nice, fancy, expensive bag, then I can
Oh,
teach you how to do that.
yeah. Learn
um,
sales. That's it.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess actually, we're joking about this, but that kind of mentality feeds into the whole being manipulative side of
Mm.
sales, I guess. But it's not that. It's just understanding the flow of conversations and how people think. Because
Yeah.
if you understand that, then you can ask thought-provoking questions, which is
Yes.
what we do in our
Yeah.
sales calls. We get our prospects to start thinking,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
through a different lens, or like seeing something in a different perspective. So sales has changed my entire life. Like, I now can have uncomfortable conversations. I can challenge people. I can quit a job without pretending I hurt my back. Like, I
Mm.
literally was a terrible communicator. And that's so crazy for some people to hear,
Yeah.
because I am so good at it now, but
Yeah.
it's taken me a long time to get to this
Mm.
point.
Mm. Yeah. And like as you mentioned, it has helped you like in your life. It's helped you in your profession. Like it's just one of, and I've always said to people, it is one of the most valuable skills that you can learn. And the power of asking the right questions. So I've mentioned this so many times. Jamie, through
Mm.
his power of asking questions, he's actually like guided me in life a little bit. Like just I've caught up with him just training at the gym. Next minute we're just having like a deep and meaningful conversation about life, and he's like drilling me all these questions, and I've got to go away for a bit and be like really think and gain clarity from that. So the power of asking the right questions is really powerful.
Yeah, thought-provoking questions where you
Mm.
actually have to stop and be like, "Oh my gosh, I've never thought of it in that way." Like, you're right. Or,
Yeah,
yeah, I don't know. And what people forget to understand is that is a skill.
yeah, it is a
That is
skill.
a skill that can be learned.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, Jamie's amazing. He's so good at doing that. He gets you to
yeah,
really ponder your life, doesn't he? He's like,
yeah, yeah.
"What am I saying about that?" No.
Yeah. No, honestly, like he's helped me a lot just by
Yeah.
his skill of communication. And
Yeah.
that's obviously how I come across you. And he talks very highly of you and says you're probably one of the best, closers there are, like that we know of.
Oh, wow.
And I've obviously listened to some of your calls, and I'm like, yeah, she's definitely good. Yeah,
Ah, thank you. Yeah.
that's okay.
What just back on something that you've said that's just come to my mind. So when I was doing the network marketing stuff that I was
Yeah, yeah,
doing, I went to a conference in America, and I was just immersed in the culture and everything. I was a fangirl. Literally, I was like, completely swept away in it. And something that I will never forget is I was sitting there, we'd just done one of these like shot things, and someone was speaking on the stage, and they were talking about the most important skill that you can possess as like a human in the negotiation or influence space. And he said, fake it until you make it. And this just struck a chord with me, because I think a lot of the time people struggle with imposter syndrome, and they're like, well, I don't think I'd be good at that, or like I can't imagine myself doing it. And that was definitely me, but I was just so good at faking it until I actually made it, that I managed to get my way. I managed to like climb the ranks and go through just from the facade that I knew what I was talking about, which is icky. And when I look back at it, I'm like, oh my gosh, but what were you doing? But it's such a powerful strategy. And sometimes, like, if you're thinking about conviction, if you are speaking with conviction, you can get anybody to believe what you're saying. Like, think about cult leaders. Like, they're not teaching the right thing, but the power of influence and speaking with conviction, it's like you can get anybody to buy into your message or your product or your service. And that stems from, you don't need to be a freaking cybersecurity expert to be able to sell cybersecurity. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And you know, like, it's like, you know, probably people don't like hearing his name, but like Hitler. You know, he influenced the whole bloody nation. Like, it's, you know, like, it is crazy. And one thing I wanted to sort of touch on that as well is how, like, I've heard so many times how someone can ask a like specific question, and that one question can change your life. So that is the power of, you know, provoking questions. Is like, say if you're, you know, doing it. I think I've heard of this before. Like, the guy was doing a job which he didn't like, and this, like, maybe it wasn't that provoking, but this guy that he was working with said, "What are you doing here? Like, you're better than this," or something like that. And then it made him think, and he was like, "What am I doing here?" And then, you know, he ended up leaving and went to a different job. But like, this is what gets people to move, to change, is by those questions.
It's the questions that you don't get asked every day. You know, like one
and
question that I love.
Yeah, it will just snap them. It will just snap them like that. Like, it will just catch them off guard, and they'll be like, "Oh, holy shit!"
Like, a prime example of that, Dylan, is like when I think it's just part of our culture, when you say to someone like, "How are you? Like, how you going?" And everyone always responds with "good." Like, imagine if you just took that one layer further and was like, "Hey, how are you going really?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, all of a sudden you're stopping and you're thinking and you're like, actually, I'm really tired. Or actually, I had a fight with my husband this morning and I'm actually feeling pretty sad. You know, but it's just such a natural response to say good. So if you keep your conversations at surface level, you will literally get surface level responses.
Yeah, exactly right. And the power of using their name too, I feel like that's, like, I try and use everyone's name, even if I, you know, just met someone. I'll say, "Oh, see you, Tom." Like, you know, just communication. It's all those soft skills that sales teach you, and like soft skills, it like goes a really, really long way.
Yeah.
And I think Jeremy Miner talks about that. I've watched a lot of his stuff.
Yeah, he's amazing. I think it says a lot about your character as well, like by acknowledging someone by their name. You know, I even call any profession that I'm in, I always make a note of, like, for instance, last time we went out for dinner and I took note of the waiter's name, and I would always, like, when they came back, I would say, "Thank you, name." Like, I just, that's just such a part of who I am, to make people feel recognized and acknowledged and like they're actual humans, you know? I just think that's to bring that quality into your sales calls, and to call them by their name, and to, you know, that's why I ask their husband's name as well, because I like to be more personable and conversational. And I'm like, what would Frank say? You know, if you said to him, "Hey, I want to lose 10 kilos. Like, what's Frank saying in response to that?" And they're like, all of a sudden they see me as someone that they can actually be like, "Oh, he'll probably just roll his eyes and laugh at me." I'm like, "Oh, what's behind that? Like, how does that make you feel?" And all of a sudden we're having like a conversation like friends, but I'm still seen as a trusted advisor and someone who can give my advice and my recommendation.
I've heard of something great. It's like whenever you're trying to sell, just imagine you're trying to help a friend out. Like imagine that you've got your friend there. Like don't worry about like money or anything. Like you literally just like think about your friends. Like think about if your best friend had come to you and was trying to like lose weight or something like that. Like how would you talk to them?
Oh
You'd
my
talk to them
God.
differently.
Dylan, I love that you just said that, because when I'm doing role play with a lot of my girls, it's like they forget how to speak. They're like, I don't know what to say to that. And I'm like, hang on a sec. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's just back it up. What if your best friend had just told you that exact same thing? How are you responding? And you watch the difference in
Yeah.
literally, like, I've had to take role play right back to the basics where I'm like, all right, you're speaking with your best friend. She's just told you that she's broken up with your boyfriend. She's starting to
Yeah.
cry. What are you saying? How are you probing to get her to tell you more? Because she's pretty
Yeah.
closed off at the moment. And the
Yeah.
moment I make it real and relatable, they're able to do it. And then I'm like,
Yep.
okay, now let's take that skill and let's put it into a sales interaction or a sales conversation, and they just freeze up. So
Yeah.
it's so
No,
interesting that you say that.
it's so powerful. I heard that the other day. I think it was I don't know some really successful person. They were saying one of the best pieces of advice he ever received with sales was treat the prospect like a friend.
Mm-hmm.
Like how would you talk to them? Like because like it is very easy to get in that sort of sales mindset of like going through a process, but if you can really, really try and think, okay, how would I talk to my mate, um, like Mark, or like, and he was struggling with this, like, would I be asking him these questions or these questions, or am I just trying to like really like probe the questions? Because I've been asked before, like, oh, are you a therapist? Like I think I've digged in too deep, but there is like
Mm.
a fine there is a fine line. Like that's where you it's all about understanding like humans, understanding tone. There's so many things
Mm.
that come into sales and talking to people.
Yeah,
But
and if people feel that you're not being genuine when you ask those questions, they are going to kind of be like, hey, why are you asking me this? Like, what's the point of it? You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah,
Like, it starts
yeah,
to build up unnecessary resistance again, because it's like
mm,
it's said too robotically, or it's said in a, in a way that makes the prospect feel like you're digging for her to say something, particularly with females, I've found.
mm,
Um, so yeah, it's tonality is absolutely massive. And it's not something that comes, you're not just born with, being a master of tonality. You do have to learn it and
yeah.
practice emphasizing certain words and your cadence and your inflections, and just there's so much to do with tonality that you can change to make yourself better.
I'd love to get you to do an example of tonality for people to understand. Could you do an example where you're just asking the question, just like that knee jerk reaction, explain like, why we don't ask questions like that, and then try and do like a tone.
So let's do the cost of inaction, right? Because
Yeah.
this is a question that can be taken the wrong way a lot of the time if you're asking in a way that comes across as condescending, or, it's kind of like me. So
Mm,
what I mean is, after you say, so I guess, what happens if you don't do anything about this? So you notice that I emphasized the word don't, my inflection
mm,
went down. Do anything about this. It's softly spoken and it's deep, which means my prospect's going to come back to me with something equally as deep. Now, if I said it this way, well, what happens if you don't do anything about this? I mean, I can't even do it. It's hard. What happens if you don't do anything about this?
yeah.
They're like, oh, well, no, I wouldn't do that. And it's like, are you
Mm,
sure? Like it's literally, it's not getting them to feel the way that you want them to feel when you ask that
mm,
question. And then you've got that responsibility frame, right? So after, it's like, and is that something that you're willing to settle for? Now, if you say that the wrong way, and are you willing to settle for that?
yeah.
They're
Yeah.
like, no, duh. And then a question that actually makes a lot of people feel uncomfortable, but it's just because they can't ask it properly, is, and whose responsibility is it to ensure that that's not your future? Now, when I ask that question, I always get a really empowered response. It's mine, Brooke. It's mine. No one else can do it for me. Perfect. Right? But I've seen people ask it in a way that's just really offensive, you know? And whose
You,
responsibility is it? It's
yeah,
like, a 50-year-old woman doesn't want to be spoken to like that.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
like, I know it's mine. And then it gets kind of like
yeah,
bitchy back and forth. There's
yeah.
like a power battle going on. So my gosh, tonality is everything. It really is, because I always say to my girls, if something feels weird, if you're saying something and you're getting a response that's not serving the conversation, just take it out. Like, you're not at the level yet where we can start working on mastering your tonality. I would actually prefer them to just take the question out
Yeah.
and nail the process without it. And then as they start to get better, it's something that we can re-explore
Yeah.
with the right
What,
tonality.
where, I love what you're talking about, because I know from, I think I've done over 1,000 sales calls now, like
Mm.
selling fitness programs. So I definitely understand the power of tone. Where did you learn? Like, did you do the NEPQ, or like where did you learn about that?
Yeah, so I've done quite a few different sales trainings. I've done NEPQ with Jeremy Miner. I also was mentored by Matt Ryder.
Okay.
I've done some natural selling stuff. I've looked at the objection box. I've done lots of different types of training. I've read a
Yep.
lot of books. And one thing I have noticed is a lot of sales coaching is presented by men. And there's
Uh,
absolutely nothing wrong with that. But what I was finding is a lot of the approaches are quite masculine.
mm,
As an example, when I first started selling, the company that I was working for, they had an action taker discount
yeah.
spiel at the
I've used
front end
that.
of the script. Yeah.
I've used that.
And
I think Jamie gave it to me actually, and it did work on a couple of people, but it always felt weird when I used to ask it. It always felt weird. So,
to me that is like sales 101. It's like,
yeah,
let's just try and build as much resistance as we can
yeah,
at the front end of the call, get our clients into cost-based thinking before we've even determined if there is a
mm,
sale to be made. Like, it was masculine. It didn't resonate with my style, and I often found I would say it because I had to, but it would be under my breath. And
mm,
half the time they'd be like, sorry, what? And I'd be like, doesn't matter. Next part of the process.
yeah,
Um, so I did struggle for a long time to find my style because I was being coached by men,
mm,
and that's fine. It taught me to be very direct and assertive, and hold myself in a conversation,
mm,
particularly with A-type personalities. But
yeah,
I lacked that femininity. I
mm,
lacked, and this is really bizarre because women are so empathetic, but I
mm,
was lacking that in my calls because I was too focused on the process. And I
yeah,
wasn't just sitting back and listening and
yeah,
being my feminine, bringing my feminine energy into the conversation. And the
yeah,
moment that I did that, I started seeing much better results and just much better conversations.
yeah. Life-changing conversations, are that?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely. I leave every call knowing that I did everything I could to help serve that person. And, I take it personally. If they can't move forward with me, then I let them down. That's the mentality that I like to have, because as a change facilitator, it's my job to facilitate change. So
yeah,
if I'm unable to do that, then I've let them down. And so I always apologize. I apologize that I couldn't help you take that next step today.
you
And
know.
when I, sorry,
Go on. No, go on. Go on.
I was just going to say, when I do that, it actually makes them again think about, oh
Think
my
about it.
goodness, I've let somebody
Yeah.
down. I've let myself down, and I've also let somebody else down. And they go away thinking about things, not feeling
Mm.
angry and agitated because I was so pressuring and, all that kind of stuff.
I love that. And no, like, yeah, I've listened to your calls, and you're very genuine, and leaving them with that will definitely help. Like, it will like help them be like, holy shit, like maybe I should do this. Like maybe maybe, and yeah, I think that's a really good question to ask. I'll start using that as well.
Yeah.
Sorry I let you down.
Yeah, and I never say sorry because it lowers
Oh,
my
okay.
status.
I
But I
apologize.
always
I
say, I
apologize.
apologize. Yeah, I apologize that I couldn't help you today. That's on me. You know, I wasn't able to help you take that next step. I wasn't able to be louder than the stories in your mind, and I apologize. And they're always like, no, Brooke, you've been so great. I'm going to go away from this and I'm going to think about everything that you've said. And I'm like, no, it's on me. I have. And I, you know, all the best, basically. And it just gets them really thinking, oh my goodness, like I'm going to be doing this same thing 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now. And it's just another thought-provoking response that it gets them leaving, thinking about the conversation. Hopefully, you know, in a couple of days, they actually do come back and say, I'm ready.
Yeah. I listened to one of AP's, like he was doing a call review on a lady.
Yeah.
I think it was that, or I was like just listening to some of his other tips, and he was talking about, you know, feeling that pain of not selling them, you know, and then like, you know, that person's going to go away and you know, keep putting on weight or for the next 5, 10, 15 years. So it's just a really powerful way to reframe that when you get off that call. It's like, oh, like I couldn't help that person. Like,
exactly. Yeah. I wasn't able to.
That's where skill, like learning from you and, you know, learning about tonality, learning about cadence. Like if you learn the right skills, that's when you could have got them over the line.
That's what I'm at the point now. And I truly believe that if I can't serve somebody, if I can't help them change on the call with me, then nobody on my team, I can't speak on behalf of every single sales rep, but nobody on my team would have been able to close that person. And that's a really powerful position to be in, because you don't take things personally then. You know, it's really hard as a salesperson to not, you know, if you're getting no time and time again, you do start to let it affect the belief that you have in yourself. You know, can you even close? Can you even sell? So when you get to the point, you've invested in a skill set, you practice, you review your own calls. When you get to the point that you know you did everything you could and they were unable to be helped, or they weren't ready to change, it's something that you can accept, and then you move on to the next person and you try and help them change. But before I was able to have this mindset, I really struggled with that. I was kind of like, oh, another no for me. You know, someone else in the team could have closed them, and like, I'm letting them down, I'm letting the team down. Then I show up with that mentality into my next call. And, you know, you just spiral after that. It's really hard to be in a positive mind frame.
Sales it is hard. It is hard, but if you learn like you learn the right techniques, like of someone like yourself, you can have the power to change people's lives. Like you learn how to use your tone, learn how to use your cadence, like, you know, cadence. But yeah, it's bloody hard, especially when you're getting like no after no after no. Like, I'm not trying to like put anyone off doing sales, but just understanding like it's hard, like getting rejected, you know, getting on a bit of a sale fail run, like getting like 5, you know, you know yourself. It's hard, but it builds resilience. 100% builds resilience.
Absolutely.
It builds, you know, you just being able to take rejection after rejection.
Well, we shouldn't look at it like that. Because I think that's half the problem is we relate a no to feeling personally rejected, and you know, objection, rejection. It's literally along the same line. So
I don't really feel rejected. I've definitely gotten past that point. I'm just like, oh, this person didn't want to buy. That's it.
Not ready to change.
But I can see like how like it can be hard for people. But
absolutely.
That's why like learning how to use your tone, like your cadence, everything like that is game changing. So then you can like not I'm not going to say go through it like a breeze, but you can like you're living your dream life, aren't you?
I like exactly right. And like actually, Dylan, I try and speak into this a lot because I would never want to glamorize remote sales. Is you know, can look very glamorous, but I also think there's a lot of down moments where like you're second guessing yourself. You're like, have I made the right decision? You can feel isolated at times as well because it is remote work. And sometimes you get yelled at and sometimes there are nasty people on the other end. But something that I've always focused on is this is not about me. This is all about them. And you cannot let somebody, you have no idea what's going on in their life. You know, they could have just lost a child, or they could have just been told some really bad news, and how they show up on that call is got nothing to do with you. So why would you let that, why would you carry that into your next call and then show up for that person the same way? Do you know what I mean?
I 100% know what you mean. And you just gave me shivers when you said it's not about you, it's about them. It's going a little bit off topic, but not too much. You know, whenever I've been, I guess, like conscious about posting something, I'm like, oh, what is this person going to think about this or something like that? I always come back to that frame of it's not about me, it's for them. You know, like this piece of content could help someone. You know, like one of your pieces of content could inspire like a lady to take change and pretty much transform her life. So I feel like it's such a powerful frame to look through. And it takes everything off you. It's like, it's not about, like, it doesn't matter, like, you don't matter. It's about them. And I feel like that's the most powerful frame that you can look through, which will make you do everything. Yeah.
Everything. Alex Hormozy talks about this a lot. He says, you know, people can get caught up in being like, oh, my post only got 30 likes, or, oh, my reel only had, you know, 20 plays. And he's like, imagine being in a room with 20 people.
Yeah.
That is the opportunity to change 20 lives. That's amazing. But we get caught up in like, oh, I don't have 1K views. I don't have, my video didn't go viral. I only got 2 likes on my post. It's like, that's 2 people. That's 2 people
that's it.
that have given you
There's
their time of
people
day.
there's people behind that phone. You know, like I do feel like that can happen a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I'm like, you know what? This post is going to reach someone. And I actually always even say, I hope this reaches the right people because you
Yeah.
need to hear this. Like, this is for you. It's for my women who feel like they don't want to be stuck to the constraints of a 9 to 5. It's for my women who are sick of having to put in a leave request to take holidays. It's like, I want my message to reach those people. And if it's only 10 of them every post, that's 10 more people than I had my last post. So
That's it.
yeah.
And one thing I'd love to add on to that too is I think a while ago I saw this coach, you know, I think he was a fitness coach or something. He put up a post about him in conversation with his coach. Yeah. And his coach asked him, like, oh, have you put any content out today? And he was like, oh, no. And then she looked at him and said, how dare you? Like, how dare you? Like, that information could change someone's lives or could help them take the next step. So I feel like that's another powerful frame to look through
Absolutely.
is like, how dare you not help people? Like, you know, how
dare
dare
you
you
not
not?
let
Yeah.
how dare you not let your voice be heard? Like,
Yeah.
you don't get to decide to have a day off because you can't be bothered. It's like there are people out there that need to hear your voice. And that's, I
Yeah.
guess, you know, that's what entrepreneurs do so well is we fight so hard to change something in this world. And some people call us crazy because, you know, we're doing the things that 90% of the population aren't willing to do
Mm. Yeah,
because we
exactly.
so badly want to change something in this world. So yeah, it's pretty amazing when you look at it like that.
All right, Brooke, I feel like we'll wrap it up, but I'd love to sort of plug, you know, SheSells and tell us a little bit about your program, what you offer, and everything like that.
Yes, thank you. So SheSells is a community. It's more than just a training ground. It's a community of like-minded women who, like I said earlier, they're the ones who are just they're done with the 9 to 5, or they're looking for something that's going to give them location freedom, financial freedom, and time freedom. And I'm giving them an opportunity to learn the same skill set that I have, my skill set that helps me make 10, 15, 20 to 30K per month, every month. Because I think it's about time that we had more women in the space. We're bloody good at communicating. We're empathetic beings. So if we can bring some of that femininity into the sales industry, because we're so underrepresented, then it will be more balanced. We might even have some thought leaders amongst these women who can help be at the top there with some of those really incredible male sales mentors that we all learn from.
Yeah. And would the best place of contact be to send you an Instagram message, or?
Yes, reach out to me. My door is always open. Even if you want to chit chat, I'm here for that. Once you get in our community, you'll fall in love with it, and everything to do with sales. We do a lot of role play and workshopping, and yeah, we'd love to have anybody who's willing to cut the rope and actually go and chase their dreams.
And I'd love you to go check out like when you put stories up of your actual calls, because they are very emotional, and yeah, you just see the power of of sales.
Yeah, there's lots of calls in our school community. So yeah, if you want to hear how it's done, come in, check it out. And I also place my girls as remote closers. So there's plenty of opportunity if you do feel like you're ready for a change in career, you're wanting something that gives you more financial, time, location freedom, then remote sales is something you should seriously consider.
Perfect. All right. I love that. Well, Brooke, thank you so much for joining me tonight. I do appreciate
You
it
are
again.
welcome.
And
Thanks for having me. It's been great. It's been great chatting.
and I'll leave you there. Welcome